Hello, everyone. I finally got Gareth Icke on my show, a man who is so elusive that it's been almost impossible to hold him down and get him on my show. But so this is actually quite a great achievement for me, Gareth. But to state a very corny cliche, you, I think, are truly your father's son. And I just think the apple really didn't fall far from the tree, did it? But even though you have been quite the prolific singer with, I want to say four albums to your name. Is that correct?
Probably, yeah. I'll try to remember now myself.
But you're an author, you're a TV presenter, and we all really know you as the son of the prophetic David Icke. But so I guess my first question is, does it really bother you at all when you're spoken of in terms of your father's son?
No, not at all. It's inevitable, isn't it? It's always going to happen. And the fact that I kind of fell into similar sort of career is the wrong word, but a similar path, I suppose, kind of obviously makes that kind of quite an obvious comparison. Although, to be fair, when I played football, that's all I got, because obviously he was a footballer. And so I'm sure subconsciously I rebelled from that, and I started playing ice hockey because I think like my dad on ice would literally never happen. But I still got compared to him then, and I was thinking he's probably never worn a pair of ice skates, but I still get compared. But that's fine, there's worse people to be compared to, if I'm honest.
I mean, I do actually love watching you though, Gareth, on your channel right now. It's your down to earth image, I think, and obviously the topics that you choose to talk about. And I think it's created quite a momentum, and it keeps the viewers really engaged, very intrigued, and just constantly connected to the guests that you have on your show. And because of this, I think you've really built a trust with your audience and the guests that you are interviewing, because it's just they are the authority on the topic that's being covered on your show. And consequently, I think this has been quite a defining experience for you, in terms of people seeing you as relevant and independent to your father. So, I mean, I'm really fascinated by how you lived growing up with David Icke as your father. Did you find it difficult at all? Did you experience or receive any sort of like animosity from friends? Because it certainly must have been hard growing up in such a environment of adversity, yet with also so much present day admiration.
Yeah, I mean, I'll level you. Like being a kid was pretty brutal. That wasn't the greatest experience in the world. Getting grief and then getting followed to school by reporters and all that sort of stuff is all very strange, and something I've never kind of normally as you become an adult, you kind of look back at stuff from childhood and you think, I get it now. But that kind of stuff, the fact that reporters would hassle me in the street and follow me as like an 8-9-year-old. I mean, I'm 40 now, and I still haven't really got my head around what the idea of that was. Do you know what I mean? What were they hoping to gain from it? It seems quite odd to me. Yeah. So that wasn't very pleasant. And then, but then, yes, the thing shifted massively. Bizarrely, kind of before the whole Rona nonsense started, I would go back to the Isle of Wight to, visit family or whatever. And people that used to give you a bit of grief in school would just come up and they'd buy you a drink, right? But they'd never say anything. They just walk up, they buy you a drink, they put their hand on your back and go and walk off. And that's sort of like man language, I think, for I was a bit of a dick, but, I get it now. And then bizarrely, sort of the whole Rona thing happened, and probably about 50% of those people that had got it and woken up and gone, all right, I'll buy you a pint, I'm sorry, I was a nasty guy before, suddenly just reverted back to buying everything the television told them. And so it was very strange to me. And then actually, I think that's happened again, where people have woken up to the COVID nonsense. And then Ukraine started, and they've gone hook, line, and sinker again. And you're like, I don't know what to say now, because it's getting boring.
It really is, yeah.
Because I can get through to you, and then okay, cool. And then what comes around the corner next? Oh, you can fall for that as well, And in the end, I think you just have to sort of almost wash your hands. Fear of sounding a bit sort of Pontius Pilate, but you kind of do in the end, I think.
Has it been easy with extended family though? Have they more or less agreed with what your father has said over the years?
Yeah, I mean, the family's always been like tight as hell, and I think that probably, to be honest, came as a result of being completely vilified and mocked and like, you know, abused and all that sort of stuff in the 90s, because it makes you or breaks you, doesn't it, really? And I think we kind of had this sort of galvanizing attitude of almost like a Millwall football club attitude of no one likes us, we don't care, sort of attitude. And I think then that has kind of just managed to sort of hold us in good stead, really. And I've also been lucky, like my wife's family are proper switched on, like they're really switched on. And so when it came to all the kind of nonsense over the last 2 years, it made my life easier, because I've got friends who are awake but their husband's family or their wife's family is not awake. And then there's issues then with, you know, I don't really want my kids to go around the house because they're going to put a mask on my kid, you know, like, and you have this kind of like, you know, dynamic of kind of, you know, polar opposites. Whereas I've been very lucky in that sense. Like my wife's family are great. So I'm always conscious of that, you know, when you, like you're saying about the Right Now show, I'm always very conscious of the fact that actually, in terms of the last 2 years, it's actually been easy for me, really. I mean, some mornings I'll wake up, don't get me wrong, and it's, you know, what the hell is going on in the world? But it's been easy for me in the sense that I don't answer to anyone. You know, I am my own person. I don't have a boss, basically. And so I didn't want to be one of those people that pontificate about, you know, don't wear a mask, don't do this, don't do that. It's like, you know, it's easy for me because I don't have to, because I don't get fired if I don't. And, you know, my family doesn't disown me if I don't. You know, I've got a friend down here in Derbyshire that was told to not go back to his homeland to visit his family because he wasn't jabbed. You know, I don't have that. You know, so I'm always very aware when I'm trying to present the show to actually not come across as, yeah, it's all right, you know, where people can say, well, it's all right for you, Gareth, because I understand I've had it easier over the last 2 years than a lot of people, to be fair.
Yeah. And what would you say, what is it basically that made you want to carry on your father's legacy and go, you know, toward in this route and field and career path? Like, because it's not easy road to travel. And a lot of children, I think, end up becoming entirely the opposite of their parents. And I mean, if you were born now, I think it would be, you would completely probably reject such a controversial worldview, because they've really brainwashed the youth to go against anything their parents think as
they have massively brainwashed the youth, and it's very confusing to me over the last couple of years to see the people that have followed the rules, and not only followed the rules but been little Hitlers about getting other people to follow the rules, have tended to be the young people. You know, even in schools and stuff, you know, the school kind of hard nut that didn't take any nonsense, the one that was always sat at the back of the bus that you would expect to go out wearing a mask, sir, bugger off, you know, is now the one, you know, punching people if they don't put a mask on. It's all quite strange to me. But I'll be honest, I'll level with you. I never wanted to get into any of this stuff. I never wanted any of it. I remember when my dad went to see a clairvoyant when I was like 10, and they'd said that, you know, your son will follow in your footsteps and will try and do work to help humanity. And I was like, you're having a laugh. I want to play football. I couldn't care less, you know, because at that point, to be honest with you, because the amount of stick I was getting from so many people, I didn't really like humanity that much. And I was kind of thinking, well, I'm not sure I want to help them. Really, they're not very nice, but if I'm honest.
I can imagine that.
But, you know, the older you get, a real wake-up call for me was I went to Israel to play beach soccer. I played in the England team for 5 years, and one of the tours was in Israel. And there was a day we toured Jerusalem, and then we went through around towards East Jerusalem, and I just saw things that didn't tally up with what Matelli told me. And that was my first real kind of almost first-hand view of something as huge as Israel-Palestine. Being not really what I was being told. And so then I you know, just basically put my head in books and researched that for probably a good few years. And I started doing some charity work with some Palestinian charities. And then the backlash I got as a result of that, including having to get a restraining order against some guy from London who was threatening to attack me at my place of work here in Derby. And it was all, you know, that was a bit of a baptism of fire for me, really. Okay, this is what happens when you speak out. This is what happens when you go against the grain. And then I just thought, I don't like bullies. If I'm honest, not a big fan of bullies. I never was as a kid. I'm certainly not a fan now. So obviously, as soon as the virus nonsense started, and you know, it was just basically the public were being bullied. They were being psychologically bullied. And I just thought, I don't want any part of that. And I also don't want, so I've got 2 young children now. I'm like, they're not growing up in the world and being bullied. You know, I'm not having that. So we went out all the time. We did what we wanted. We went to a play park near where I lived at the time, where the council had put all tape around the play park so you couldn't get in. So we ripped all the tape off and went, no, we're not having it. And it went from there, really. And I found, you know what, if you just come in with an attitude of, I'm not having it, and there's literally no point where I'm going to have it. Because I was having conversations with lots of people. They were like, well, I don't wear a mask. I don't want to wear a mask. But if someone does X, Y, and Z, so if someone makes it difficult, or, you know, I don't want to get the jab, of course I don't want it, but if they make it difficult, well, mate, you may as well go get it now. You may as well have got it yesterday, because they're gonna make it difficult, and they're gonna try and make it difficult again. No doubt about that. But if you put something out, I don't sound like a hippie here, but you want to put something out to the universe that's like, you know, look, I have a line here, and it's not getting crossed. You can come and bounce off that line as much as you want, but you're not coming past it. Life just has a kind of crazy way of just sort of just not crossing that line for whatever reason. And my attitude was very much, no one's getting past my front door. Literally not getting past my front door, metaphorically. Whereas other people's attitudes were very much, I could see them going, they're not coming, okay, they can come in the lounge. All right, yeah, but they're not coming in the kitchen, because my kids are in the kitchen. So they're not, mate, once you've let them in the lounge, they're in your house, and they're going to be roaming around in no time. And so as an example, my wife was pregnant, and obviously when our first child was born, greatest day of your life, it's amazing. It was, you know, 2 years before all this nonsense started. And then I knew we had to go to hospital for the birth. And I'll be honest with you, I was obviously very excited about the birth, but I was dreading what I was going to walk into, because here in Derby, the hospital was kind of renowned for being not particularly pleasant. My brother got booted out of the hospital, going to his wife's scan, because his child was born just a month before mine. And so I was kind of, and then I just thought, you know what, I'm gonna, you know, deep breath. The line's not getting crossed. No one's putting a test up my nose. No one's putting a mask on my face. No one's doing any of this nonsense. I'm just going to go. And honestly, I walked in there with that attitude, and no one said a word to me. No one said a word to me. And it just kind of just put this sort of, it's almost like this kind of barrier of like, I'm not nervous about it, and I'm not going to be aggressive with it, because I've seen people be aggressive with it. I'm just, this is me. And this is kind of, I'm in my little egg here. And it's quite funny, because we were at an ice rink. I'd taken my eldest ice skating, and my wife was behind me in the queue. This was before we had Ophelia. And this guy's going down the queue, and he's making sure everyone's got their mask on, right? And I'm stood there. And just prior to that in the car, my wife had said to me, she said, well, I don't understand why no one asks you, like no one hassles you. And like, I'm not a massive bloke, so it's not like, you know, you're like, oh God, don't ask him, he'll take your head off. That's not the case. Yeah. But you know, and so as he's coming down the line, checking everyone, I sort of turned around to Gemma like that, thinking, here we go, it's gonna be funny. And the guy in front of me, honestly, I'm not kidding, he's a big lad. And he checks his ticket, and then he goes, can you pull that over your nose, please? Right, so the guy pulls it over his nose. I was thinking, right, here we go. So he get to me, I went, all right, mate. And he checked the ticket, he went, cheers. And he just walked past me, right? And honestly, my wife's face is like, what the? I was like, mate, it's just put it out there. Just put it out there. And it's funny how much it looks after you. It's strange.
It's very true. I mean, it's safe to say that we really are living in quite unprecedented times. And what is your opinion on this leftist woke culture that we've cultivated, and that's currently really pervading the consciousness of my generation, specifically, and everyone younger? I think, you know, where it's just really hard now, because where everything that I say even has to be watered down sometimes to appease people who somehow find offense everywhere they look. So what is your opinion on this woke culture that we're experiencing right now?
I think there's multiple layers of it. I think when you get into the whole, you know, to the whole transgender explosion, that there is a lot about confusing gender kids to further down the line create no genders, basically no gender humans, as was predicted in the 60s, that they would try and morph men and women together, you know, which they have done since. So on that level, you know, it's very deep. I think there's a pedophilic approach to the sexualization of kids. I don't understand any other reason why you would sexualize kids unless your tendencies lean that way. But I think a lot of it is also about, getting people to shut up before they've spoke. So rather than people say stuff and then they get consequences for it, which does happen, now you've created a scenario where people don't even say it because I'm frightened to, because I'm going to get some grief. So you know, you're controlling people's thought processes and people's language. So that's hella powerful to be able to do that. In terms of sort of where it comes from, I noticed this back when the X Factor was a thing, that you'd kind of made it cool to be a victim. Like that was something. And actually, you know, not so much now because life is going down the pot a bit and life is very hard for people financially and going to get worse with this energy nonsense. But before, the last sort of 10 years, people have kind of had it pretty cushy, really. You know, life's not been that bad. No one's, you know, the Luftwaffe haven't been coming overhead. You know, it's been pretty decent life, really. You know, and when your life's pretty good, but it's cool to be a victim, then you've kind of got to find a fence from something or find something that makes you a victim. And so people tend to look at the odd word or the misgender or these most ridiculous things to be offended by. And I look at it and I think, do you know what? If you can be upset by the fact that someone's used the wrong pronoun, your life is pretty good. Like if that's what's getting you, you know, bear in mind, some people can't feed their kids and you're crying because they called you the wrong gender. I mean, your life must be pretty sweet for that to be what bothers you.
It's also funny how people who, when they come out as gay now, they actually consider that to be the bravest act in today's society. I mean, we actually live in the most inclusive, progressive, diverse, and prosperous society in human history, yet we're supposed to, like you said, behave as though, you know, we're victims and as though we live in the most oppressive society ever. It really is such a dichotomy.
It's very strange, especially living somewhere like where I am. I mean, I live in a village just outside now, but I'm in Derby at the moment. The Derby is massively multicultural. It has, it's kind of almost like it's gay quarter of bars and things like that. Oh, wow. And when you're hearing like, you know, the England or Britain is a racist, institutionally racist country, that it's anti-LGBTQ, and I'm thinking, where do you guys live? Like, because that's not the case in the slightest. I mean, you're always going to have a knobhead in every single aspect of life. Of you know, knobheads come in all shapes, sizes, colors, and sexualities. They just do. Unfortunately, you know, there's a few of them around, but that doesn't make it institutional. And I just think, yeah, that is quite strange. And maybe that does then tie in as well to that victim mentality of that X Factor kind of generation, because I remember watching it where, you know, when I was a kid, it was too far the other way, probably, where it was like, you know, my dad's got a faster car than you, my dad could beat up your dad, you know, it was a bit more that sort of stuff, whereas now it's like, my dad's disabled and everyone's like, oh mate, you win, chop trumps.
Yeah,
because I remember watching the X Factor every now and then. You have someone come out and they'd be asked about their childhood, you know, it was dreadful, you know, my mum died and then my dad was in it, and you're like, just sing a song, you know. And what if someone, the
best sub story wins.
That's exactly what it is. Yeah. It's exactly what it is. And it almost feels like life is imitating the art on that sense. Like if someone said to you, like, how was your childhood? It was great. Parents really supportive. They're both in the audience now. Great. Yeah. I mean, they wouldn't win.
Too much privilege. We can't let him win.
Exactly. You wouldn't win. Everyone likes a victim in that sense. It's very strange.
It's so true. Like we're almost forced to, we're told that there's prejudice wherever we look. Then, and you know, it's not enough. There's not enough Black actors on TV now. There's not enough female biographies, apparently, because apparently I've even heard that there aren't enough Black, Asian, minority, ethnic cyclists on the road these days. I heard someone talk about this the other day. So apparently the biggest challenge to London cyclists is not safety, but it's actually diversity. It's just,
oh yeah, exactly,
incredible.
We had the same not far from here, actually, up in the Lake District, that the Lake District was racist because most people, or the majority of people that went hiking in the Lake District were white people. And it's like, but maybe they don't want to come hiking. You know, maybe it's their choice. Like there's not a sign on the door saying like, you're not coming in. And the other thing that people forget as well is that Britain, I think, is about, I think it's about 88% white, or maybe 86% white. So even if you do have a larger ratio in a certain thing, that's probably not that abnormal. It's like going to, you know, if you went to Nigeria and said, oh, there's not enough white people on telly.
Yeah.
Well, of course there isn't. It's Nigeria. What are you talking about?
Someone said this about the World Cup, like in the Korean team, there's not enough diversity. Like,
I know.
it's the Korean team. It's just, it's
This is the
hilarious,
thing.
honestly.
It is very strange that I think that people see. That's the first thing that people see as well. I think there's quite a lot of projection there, because and when you say that, people go, oh, you is it all right for you with your privilege? You don't have to think about these things. And I go, well, okay, maybe not, whatever. But at the same time, like when the England women football team beat Norway 8-0, I mean, they were expected to win or draw, maybe, and they win 8-0, which is just like a wow. And the first thing when they go to the commentator on the pitch, the BBC, is that the fact that it was an all-white starting 11. And I'm thinking, right, well, one, they've won 8-0, so the coaches probably picked the best team, I've got to say. But also, how is that your first thought? I didn't even notice. I just saw some women kicking a football around and winning comfortably. But the idea that, this is really good, this is great for women's sport, we need a problem. What problem is it? Well, look, they're all white. Oh, yeah, there we go. Nice one. Well spotted. Brilliant. We'll go with that. And I think, what does that do then to girls at home of different cultural backgrounds, whatever? What does it say to them that they can't do it?
Right.
And that's not the case.
How is that not racist in some regard? Like, you can actually flip that around and even say that question is actually quite racist.
I think so. I think people that have this obsession with it. I remember a Morgan Freeman quote where someone said to him, what can we do? He said, just stop talking about it.
Yeah.
Just stop talking about it. Because, it becomes a thing a lot of the time. And like I say, there's exceptions to every rule, but that's also in every demographic. I remember being in New York City when I was about 22, and I took a wrong turn, and this guy just turned to me and said, turn around, white boy, people get shot around here for looking like you. And I sort of turned around and legged it. I was like, bricked it. Obviously, it was young and it was New York City. But okay, well, I've been racially abused then. If I want to, if you want to play that card, then I'll play that card. I wasn't. He was just a bit of an idiot, and
right.
and that was that. And I went round to a bar not far around the corner, and I sat with people of all different colours, and they were great. We had a great time. So you don't then judge everyone the same, but it seems to be that's the way to do things now. This group think of if you fit into this, it's like I'm a disabled black man who's left-handed. All right, yeah, I'm Gareth. Like, well, I don't like that stuff. It doesn't define you. It's just that's something that you do. If you're attracted to the same sex, good on you. That's not who you are. That's just something that you do. You don't have to define yourself by that. But it seems that that's what we're told to do now. To get into
it's the oppression of Olympics. Even Google has actually taken the egg out of its salad emoji to make it more inclusive to vegans. But is there a single vegan in this world that feels triggered or oppressed in any way, or not misrepresented by a salad emoji with an egg in it? I don't understand, Gareth. I guess this constant pandering to the minority, as though being a minority is automatically equal to being oppressed and marginalized, and it's making society a little bit topsy-turvy, to say the least. But have you also noticed this ever-growing number of disabled parking in supermarkets, as though the disabled now outnumber the non-disabled shoppers? But we're not even allowed to say the word disabled anymore. We're supposed to say differently abled. So
I have actually noticed that, the fact that there's always far too many differently abled spaces. Yes. That is something I've noticed when trying to drive around and find a space out in the distance.
Usually empty as well.
Yeah, they are. Yeah, because there's more of them for whatever reason. Yeah, that's well spotted. Now you've pointed that out. I have noticed that before. Yeah, it is very strange the way that kind of you're, like you've said, about because you're a minority, you're automatically oppressed. Well, billionaires are a minority.
True.
I mean, trillionaires are an even smaller minority. I mean, their life must be hell. I mean, geez, but you're right. And also, why is being a minority a bad thing? I don't know about anyone else, but I'd rather be part of a minority group.
Same.
Whether it be a way of thinking or whatever, than running with the crowd. For me, it doesn't really appeal to me to be part of a herd, if I'm honest. So I don't know. I don't know. I don't know where it ends either, if I'm honest. I mean, I'm more encouraged in the last sort of 6 months that actually this kind of stuff's been called out a lot. And I can't help but feel that part of that is because they've gone for the kids, especially with the gender reassignment stuff and the puberty blockers and the drag queens reading into primary school kids and all this kind of stuff while wearing lingerie and all that sort of nonsense. I can't help but feel they've gone too far with that. And what they've managed to do is kind of bring lots of people together, because it doesn't matter what your income bracket is. It doesn't matter whether you're Dave, Dan a boozer, or whether you're, you know, sort of Madame whatever in the library. Your kids are your kids, and they're your world. So if someone comes for your kids, you're standing up. And so they've kind of almost inadvertently, by going for the kids, they've actually brought a lot of people across lots of different demographics together. Because you will have large swathes of the Muslim community, the Christian community, the Jewish community that can beat each other's necks occasionally, who are all like, well, no, it's about the kids, guys. And they are all of a sudden they're together. So I kind of feel like that's backfiring in terms of the divide and conquer stuff, which is encouraging.
I agree.
And I know I was speaking to Jamie from Gays Against Groomers, who have been doing amazing work in America, and they've been getting, you know, pelters and kicked off social media and all this sort of stuff, as you do when you speak out. But they made some very valid points as a group, was the fact that if LGBT rights get rolled back and get rescinded, it won't be because of, you know, far right nationalists or any of this nonsense. It will be because of the crazy extreme left that have taken it too far. And so she was saying that she fears now that actually the gay community, not that it's a community like as if they're all one group, but they have been accepted by society. I don't know anyone that doesn't accept them at all. But actually now they're starting to actually get some kind of flack, because actually people are now associating this LGBTQ, however many letters, kind of going too far. They're sort of associating that with the gay community, and so it's actually coming back on them, which is why they said that they felt compelled to start this organization to actually fight back and say, hey guys, you know, like we're gay, lesbian, you know, transgender people are part of it as well, that are outraged. And they were saying like they've got a lot of drag queens that are within their ranks that are absolutely outraged. The fact that, what the hell are these drag queens doing, reading stories to kids in libraries in lingerie? Like, what the hell are you doing? Like, there's no reason why you would want to do that unless there's something going on.
And I think it's just a matter of time before they include P for pedophilia in the LGBTQ acronym. And so it's also really sad that all these companies and corporations that we see have to include themselves in Pride Month. They put a rainbow in a place, on a placemat, or they put it on a paper cup. Like in Costa, I saw the rainbow on the paper cup in Costa. It's just, I mean, I don't know. It's like showing respect for diversity taken to absolute extremes, like you said. And this is just a corporate extension of what we're seeing in the modern phenomenon, demonstrating how woke we all are. And people even define themselves as anti-fascist on their Twitter profiles. I mean, who isn't anti-fascist? Like, what do you want a participation trophy for not being an anti-fascist? It's just identity
Fair point.
politics.
Absolutely. And also a lot of the people that identify as anti-fascist are actually act like fascists anyway, which is extraordinary. But I think, do you know what, with the corporations and stuff, in terms of that virtue signaling, like they don't care. They don't care less about anyone but the bottom line. They don't care what color you are or what sexuality you are. They will stand on you as hard as they stand on everyone else. So they're not bothered. What it is it's become it's so pushed now and so promoted that actually if they don't do it, there will be a backlash. So I think someone like Costa will put a rainbow on, because if they don't, people will go, well, Starbucks put a rainbow on. Why don't you put a rainbow on? Is that because you're homophobic? Is that because you're anti-LGBTQ? And the same thing came with, you know, the taking the knee at the football and all that sort of stuff. It was like, it's the player's choice. No, it's not. No, it's not, because one player decided not to do it. Could you imagine? The media, everyone would just absolutely rinse them. So they can say it's your choice, but it's not really. I mean, I'll be honest with you, I'd proudly just stand there, but I kind of quite like getting flack sometimes. It's like going fishing. You get a bite. But, you know, I know a lot of people, Derby actually, a club that I support, they were one of the first teams to actually stop doing it. Oh. And they kind of managed to negate a lot of the abuse, because the main vocal players that were refusing to do it were black players. And so they kind of had you got a bit more of an issue then to attack them.
Right.
We had 2 players the whole time that didn't take the knee. They stood and they did that instead, but they wouldn't take the knee and stuff. So it kind of, that, that was slightly different. But for most clubs, particularly white players, there was no way they could not take a knee because of they probably end up losing sponsorship deals.
Oh, yeah. Do you think this is the same reason that, members of the Hollywood elite espouse such radical leftist causes? Like, why are they so pro-abortion, pro-queer activism, and why are they so passionate about saving whales, but pro-murdering babies in the womb? Like, how and why did Hollywood become so woke?
Because they're owned by the same cult that are pushing the whole thing on everyone anyway. You simply don't get in there if you're not in the club. You will have 1 or 2, mavericks that might kind of just slip in the back door, but they're never around that long. If you look at sort of like Gina Carano and people like that they speak out about certain things and they're gone, cancelled, bang, see you later, bye-bye. And so that then it sends a message to other Hollywood people. I mean, I bet if you went into a dressing room and it was totally soundproofed and you said, look, this is going no further, I'm not wired, their opinions, not all of them, but a lot of their opinions would be very different from the ones that they promote. I mean, I remember Rihanna tweeting Free Palestine in about 2015.
Wow.
Ooh, the backlash.
God, I can imagine.
And she, but it wasn't backlash from the general public. It was the backlash from all the, so-called anti-hate groups, which just spout hate all the time. And she came out and made the biggest mistake you can possibly do, which is come out and apologize. As soon as you apologize, you've had it. You've
bowed down to the mob now. And this is exactly what happened with the 2 model sisters. I'm not sure if you're familiar with them, Gigi and Bella Hadid. They're actually Palestinian and they came out in support of Palestine, and so many companies dropped them. It's just absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah, and an Arsenal footballer tweeted something recently, and he got threatened by the hierarchy of Arsenal because I want to say Lavenzi, it's a coffee brand, Italian coffee brand. They're a big sponsor of Arsenal, and they went to the club and said, you need to get this boy in check because he vocalized an opinion. Otherwise, we'll pull our sponsorship, which is, extraordinary, really. I mean, I remember Zayn Malik, the lad that was in One Direction. Not that I'm hugely into One Direction. I think my wife's got a bit of a soft spot for him, but he tweeted it and he got some abuse, and at the same time as Rihanna and all that, and he just flipped it and he went, I'm a Muslim and I support Palestine, so deal with it. And I was like, fair play, and did he get cancelled and destroyed? No, his career carried on. Like, if you stand up to the mob, then you often fare better than if you bow down to them.
True. And Gareth, I don't know if you've struggled with this yet, but I know that you have young children, and I've noticed more political agendas being shoved down our throats than we can actually get used to. Even children's movies like The Incredibles 2. Like, most of the audience screening this film are children who don't have the cognitive capacity to comprehend the absurdities of leftist propaganda that is now included. But there's just so many movies now, Gareth, that they're now finding ways to inject woke politics into. Because in the past, cinema truly felt like art because they didn't really compromise on the story to pursue these underlying political agendas. Like, remember James Bond's early adventures, in which, 007, his character, the female characters they portray the female characters in quite a sexist fashion. Like, even a comedy classic like the 1950s Some Like It Hot, which features, I think, Marilyn Monroe and 2 men dressed in drag. This could also be quite insensitive given our modern day culture. But everything is either about LGBT representation or it's about diversity. And diversity is okay, but it just seems so forced now. They would rather compromise on the story. Just it's almost like they have a quota. Like Netflix shows these days. It's ridiculous. It's like directors have like a checklist that they have to tick before their movie is allowed to be, aired.
Yeah, and especially like historical films, I don't understand that. I mean, I remember the Anne Boleyn, was that on Channel 5? Anne Boleyn
He's black.
Yeah, and like I couldn't give a monkeys who does what role, who plays what role, but Anne Boleyn wasn't. So I don't know what you're trying to achieve by that, really. You know,
Wouldn't you argue that it's actually more racist to manipulate history? Like if you're watching a historical drama, I don't want to be surprised with fictional stories. I want it to be as close to reality as possible.
yeah, I'm the same. I'm the same. I don't want Daniel Radcliffe playing Nelson Mandela, if I'm honest. That wouldn't work for me. And so, you know, yeah, I don't get it if it's in its historical. It just seems like that's a conscious decision to try and either tick a box or say, look at us. Maybe that's part of it. I mean, I've not watched it. I mean, I don't doubt, to be fair, she was probably an incredible actress. She probably played the role brilliantly. I just don't get, you know, what you're trying to achieve if it's a historical drama, because that's not historically correct. So I don't get that personally. But no, I am concerned. I mean, my daughter's supposed to start school a week on Monday, and you know.